Airport Design Challenge is a fully immersive, self-directed, interactive learning and collaboration opportunity. Students from kindergarten through 12th grade have the opportunity to design replicas of actual airports, all in the virtual world of Minecraft. Through direct guidance from FAA experts, participating students may meet aviation professionals, engage with other students from around the world, and learn about exciting career opportunities in the aerospace industry. The challenge begins with airport paved surfaces, then evolves into security and perimeter fencing. Details like lighting and markings are added, and then each building grows up from the ground as challengers research their local airport, then recreate every detail. Finally, students exercise their creativity to determine what innovations could drive the future of their airport.
Something I learned was that teamwork and good communication is crucial, because without them, there would be chaos.
We were able to take something real that exists in the real world and change it into something that may exist tomorrow.
Thank you, FAA, for giving us the opportunity to share our passion for engineering with others.
Students engaged in the Airport Design Challenge may work individually or in small teams with the support of dedicated adults at home or the motivation of innovative educators in the classroom. Join us for the 2023 Federal Aviation Administration Airport Design Challenge. Building the future of aviation, one block at a time.
Hello and welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens, putting the word fun in FAA that will provide enlightening details about the Federal Aviation Administration's efforts to inspire young people from all backgrounds to pursue aviation and aerospace careers. And since that is my goal with every show, every week, we're going to talk in detail about what the FAA is doing on that front. It is always welcoming when I have spent time with guests that I know, that I've gotten to know in advance. But even with that, looking at both their current responsibilities and career history, I feel really privileged to have them on the show and share their wisdom. Since I just recently did a live video broadcast from Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology up in Flushing, Queens, New York, I will start with introducing Wayne Hubbard. Wayne, a graduate of Vaughn College, is a National Traffic Management Officer at the Air Traffic Control Systems Command Center. That sounds like a lot of responsibility, not to mention a pretty cool job. So Wayne focuses primarily on strategic and tactical management of national aerospace system operations. He supports the development for traffic flow management, trajectory-based operation, space operations, not to mention the future capabilities for deployment in the national airspace system. It's a mouthful, but he does it all and does it well. I'm gathering, Wayne, that means drones and advanced air mobility on that platform. Yeah, I'll take that as a yes. Congrats on your pursuit of a master's in organizational leadership at Shenandoah University. That's a beautiful school up there for anybody that's been in the Shenandoah area. I've been to that campus, and that's a great place to go and study. Joining Wayne is Christine Sharp, both by Chris. She's my best friend. Well, actually, no. we had spent one day together at a workforce summit. But Chris is the manager of the Aviation Workforce and Education Division at the Federal Aviation Administration, where she oversees its efforts to introduce students of all backgrounds to aerospace careers and provide them with pathways to ensure a diverse and robust aerospace workforce future. Previously, Chris also served as a staff director in the FAA's Office of Aviation Workforce Outreach. She was also a manager for social collaboration and engagement in the Office of Communication. And she spent 20 years in the FAA's Office of International Affairs. To be fair, the school mentions, she studied international relations at Colgate University and got her master's in organizational communications at George Mason University. So when Chris is not busy with all of that kind of stuff, it's this. She trains for strongman, strong women competitions with her son as her coach and her teenage daughter. Drop the mic. That's pretty cool stuff there, Chris and Wayne. Both of you have really impressive backgrounds. And as I mentioned to you guys before we went live, I'm sincerely happy to have both of you on the show and to have gotten to know you prior to the show and seeing you in person at that summit, that workforce summit. So welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace. So great to have you guys with us today. And there's a lot of ground for us to cover. As you saw, we opened up the show with the Airport Design Challenge. And there's other areas that you guys are also doing those type of programs and everything. And I think what we'll do, Chris, I'll start with you and ask you to give us kind of an overview of some of what you guys do and are currently doing.
Sure.
In your outreach efforts.
I'll be more than happy to, Vince. I can talk for hours, so you might have to cut me off. But so as you mentioned, we have our Aviation Workforce and Education Division, and that's where we run what we call STEM AVSED. So STEM, most people probably know, science, technology, engineering, and math. AVSED stands for Aviation and Space Education. So our program is, while focused on STEM, it's very much focused on aerospace and really reaching out to students, and we focus on K through 12, to try and engage them, to let them know about the opportunities that are out there in aviation and aerospace careers. We find that a lot of kids just don't have any concept of the vast array of careers that are available. But then probably more importantly is to keep them engaged and put them on a pathway, because ultimately the goal is to get these kids into that workforce. So one of our main focuses is really also to do that with as many children as we can of all backgrounds. So we're very focused on trying to ensure that whatever activities we do, we're doing them in such a way that we're able to expose children from diverse backgrounds. So we do have some programs that are very much focused on reaching underserved and underrepresented communities, like our Adopt a School program, and that's focused on fourth graders. So what we do is we work with a school and we go into their fourth grade classes, because we realize that, age 10 is one of the crucial ages when kids start to make decisions about what they want to be when they grow up. And it's also an age where we saw that there was a bit of a gap. So we go into the schools at that age. We've got FAA employees who go in and they teach. We have 6 lessons that they teach to the kids, and it introduces them to things like pilots, mechanics, air traffic controllers, but also drones, airports, and commercial space. So through this, they get an opportunity to not only learn about these careers, but they also get to see FAA employees and engage with them and talk to them. So that's one of our big programs that we have. We also have ACE academies, and I know Wayne can talk to you a lot about those because he's very engaged, but those are summer camps that we do in conjunction with a lot of our partners around the country that give kids an opportunity over the summer to have that intensive week-long, normally, view into the many aspects of the world of aviation. And they're super fun. It's on my favorite season because sometimes I get to go out to some of them. We do all types of outreach. And I just want to say to anybody who's listening, if you are a student or if you're a parent, or if you work with some organizations that are connected with youth, please reach out to us, because we have a large cadre of FAA employees, over 1,900 employees around the country, who are very interested in going out and engaging with students. So it really easy to remember, faa.gov/education. I'm sorry?
You said 1,900 employees do outreach?
We do. We have, and we call them outreach representatives, and they step up and say, in addition to the regular job that I do every day, I think it's important to get out there and inspire the next generation. So they go out and do these activities. So we can send them into classrooms. We go to air shows and have booths there. We have drone cages, we have simulators, all sorts of toys. Just any way that we can to engage with students.
One of the things that I find really nice about that is that they attract, they have experience in various areas of the FAA. So they're bringing their experience with them when they're doing the outreach. And I would think that would be a big plus.
It is. And the really cool thing is we have people from all sorts of backgrounds. So a lot of times when you ask young people, if you talk to them about aviation, they immediately think pilot. Sometimes they think flight attendants, maybe air traffic controllers, but they don't have a wide view of really all the different aspects of aviation careers. And so it gives us an opportunity to send in people who may be engineers or wildlife biologists or even accountants or cybersecurity specialists, you name it. So it really is an opportunity to open up the world of all these different opportunities to a lot of these kids.
ACE is something that actually had a lot to do with your getting into the aviation arena. So how about you tell us first about how that happened, when you were growing up and starting to look at aviation as a possibility. Tell us a little bit about that before we talk specifically about that program.
Yes, absolutely. I am a direct product beneficiary, if you will, of aviation education, being exposed to it at an early age through an ACE camp. I grew up in East Orange, New Jersey, near Newark International Airport. And there was no one in my family who was in the aviation industry. It was just my pure curiosity. So I was able to get connected with a youth and aviation nonprofit and also begin my journey learning about the world of flight, space, also visiting different colleges, different airports. And so that was my teenage experience. So I knew early on right away, this was for me. My first flight in an airplane completely changed my life, my perspective on everything. And my first flight was out of Lincoln Park Airport in New Jersey. And we flew east towards the Hudson River, turned south down the Hudson River, and I looked left and I saw the Twin Towers at eye level, and it blew me away. And I knew that this was the most incredible thing that I wanted to be a part of for the rest of my life. So that was my first flight experience, and one engagement after another brought me into the military, where I worked in aviation and in weather, and then eventually to air traffic control at Vaughn College, and being hired by the FAA.
Yeah, thanks for your service. I believe you were a Marine.
Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. Anyhow, no, that's the, so you kind of skimmed through it, but when did you know that the FAA was something you were going to want to stick with and move your way up through?
What appealed to me most,
air traffic control and all that.
Yeah, certainly. Air traffic control was the one portion of the aviation world that made a lot of sense to me. I'm a thinker. I always enjoyed playing chess, and I saw the thought process and decision making that went into that field, and it piqued my interest right away. When I went into the military initially, I thought that I would be able to do air traffic control in the Marines. However, it didn't work out as planned. So when I finished my enlistment, that led me directly into the Vaughn College of Aeronautics, the CTI Controller Training Initiative program at the time. And that allowed me to get a bachelor's degree in airport management and be eligible to be hired by the FAA. So I didn't take the direct path. It was definitely a little circular, but I eventually found where I feel like I belong today. So both told me that my audio quality is lacking, so I don't know what's going on with that, but I'm going to check it. While I'm doing that, can you tell us a little bit more, Wayne, about the technical side of your world in terms of traffic flow management and all of that? Just give us an overview of what that's all about. Certainly. As Chris has mentioned, most people think about pilots and air traffic controllers when they are thinking about the aviation system. However, there is a vast network of systems and engineers and data behind the scenes. And so as I began my career as a controller, I moved into a field called traffic flow management, and working at the command center at this location. It's the only facility of its kind in the United States, and we manage all the flights across the United States, and we also manage operations on the border with our international partners, also working with space operations, military. And you mentioned, I think in the beginning, urban air mobility. We are part of those plans and discussions on how we're going to integrate those new users as well. So the last few years, I've been working directly with teams of system engineers, with human factor scientists, and program managers to help to develop what the future of these systems are supposed to look like, to integrate these new users, but also to add features to make things more safe en route. So the simplified explanation of what traffic flow management is, once you get to your plane, you take off and you get into those upper altitudes, then the en route controllers take over. And at the command center, we are looking at vast numbers of aircraft, flows of traffic from east to west, north and south, managing how you get into many of the major airports like New York and Atlanta and Chicago. And the reality, in the summertime like we are now, it's not always a smooth transition when you have thunderstorms and you have unexpected events popping up. We help to negotiate and to create a plan with the airlines and with the air traffic control facilities across the country to help facilitate that movement. So a lot of moving parts, definitely never static, whether we're talking about today, tomorrow, or we're talking 5 years from now. And I've been fortunate to be a part of many of those types of discussions and those engagements. Hopefully that was a good enough overview. There's always more that we can dig into.
It looks like maybe Vince is still trying to fix his sound there. But so I'll ask you a question, Wayne, since it's just the two of us. You know that for us, the ACE Academies are a big deal during the summer. And I'm really fascinated by not only the fact that you started with an ACE Academy, but if I understand correctly, you also are now hosting or helping to host ACE Academies. And I'd be really interested to hear, how that feels for you to kind of have come full circle and now being on the side where you're the one who's giving back to the kids.
Indeed, absolutely. So it wasn't something that I initially had set out to do, working with young people. However, an opportunity had come up back in 2015 where I went back home and the nonprofit that I was a part of, Eagle Flight Squadron, was still in motion, and there's new young people, and the program manager was a colleague who I hadn't seen in over a decade. He was working at the Port Authority, and he said, I think we should do an aviation camp. And so we put our heads together and we developed a 2-week program where we brought a group of students, middle school from 8th grade to I think about 11th grade, to places like Teterboro Airport. We went to Vaughn College of Aeronautics. We also went to the FAA Technical Center in New Jersey, where the systems are being tested. Also, other plans and programs that are being integrated into the National Airspace System. Then we've rented a bus and brought them down to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, and the look on the kids' face, how much fun they were having, it was a really, really special time. And over the next several summers, I was involved in doing those again in New Jersey, but also in Virginia, where I live, working with our local airport in Winchester, Virginia, and a regional children's museum. And it happened very organically. One engagement leads to another, and it's been incredibly rewarding. One of the things I've always enjoyed too is these engagements are incredibly cool. These simulators, and you, I'm sure you are aware, Chris, as well, are state-of-the-art. These are fully functional, certified training simulators where real-world pilots and real-world engineers are working and getting that hands-on, high-level engagement. And so it's about as sophisticated as you can get as far as interacting with the system, and then also talking to the subject matter experts and asking these detailed questions about how the aviation system works and what are the requirements to become a professional in this field. So we do leave them with a lot of things to think about, to consider just the full range of things that are out there. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, my experience has been the same with that. You know, for anybody who's listening that's in the aviation industry, entirely encourage people to get out there and to engage with the kids, because I think, Wayne, you brought up something which is so important, which is it does take a village. It's not, you know, it's got to be a collaborative thing. And so we don't have a camp that's just held by one organization. We're all working together. We're bringing them to museums. We're bringing them to, you know, police stations to see their aviation activities, et cetera, and so forth. And so it's an opportunity to really collaborate across all sorts of sectors to be able to really get these kids excited and engaged. Hey, Vince, we took over.
You guys did a great job. Does my sound any better?
No.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I don't know what to do about that. So I'll probably have to switch to a headset, I guess. That's the first time for. So it's still garbled.
It's breaking up quite a bit.
Breaking up. What you guys have been doing?
We're just chatting.
No, no, that was a great question too that you asked Wayne, Chris. So it definitely is something that covers one of the areas that I wanted to talk about. Let's do this for a bit, if you could, and tell us a little bit more about your, some of your programs, Chris, that you guys are currently. So we were talking about a couple of things. Both of you have a couple of programs that I thought were really interesting. They're design challenges. Why don't we talk about that a bit, Chris? We first start with yours. Then you can piggyback on that and talk about yours. And I'm gonna make one more on the check.
Sure. So one of the things that we really have found that's been an effective way to engage students is by challenging them, right? So everybody has a competitive streak, but we found that that's particularly true with students. And one of the things that we've also found is that by issuing challenges, it's also a way to potentially bring in students who may not already be interested in aviation. It might be a way to really bring them into it. So one of the programs that we've had for quite a while, we are one of the founding partners of something called the Real World Design Challenge. And that's an annual engineering challenge that takes place. And there's more information about that also on our website, faa.gov/education. But it's for teams of high school students where they form a team, they have a coach, and every year they're given a real world challenge that they need to figure out how to address. So the last couple of years, I've been able to do some of the final judging, and it's been really excited to see the work that these kids do. For instance, this last year, it was focused on drones and developing and engineering, so building drones that would be able to do package delivery. And so they're given requirements on how, what is the weight of the packages that have to be carried, how many packages have to be delivered within a certain amount of time, distance, all these types of things. So then they have to design their drone, but then they also have to build an entire business model around that drone and the delivery service. So it's really an interesting, very real life activity for some of these kids, and to see the things that they come up with. Kids are much smarter than I've ever been, but it really is a way to engage the students. And then one of the cool things about that is Embry-Riddle is also one of the partners. And so the winners, if they choose to go to Embry-Riddle, they actually get scholarships to Embry-Riddle. So that's a really exciting type of challenge. We also work on a completely different end of the spectrum. We have a contest with NASAO, which is the National Association of State Aviation Officials, every year. That's an art contest. So it's an opportunity to bring kids in from all different backgrounds, but they're given a challenge. There's a theme every year. And so the kids do artwork based on that theme, and then they send it in for a challenge. So that's another way that we use challenges. But as you saw at the beginning, when we started, our airport design challenge is kind of the newest of these that we've done. And it takes, I won't repeat a lot of what the video said, but it gives an opportunity for students where they already are spending time in video games to pick a real world airport, and then they recreate it in Minecraft, but we sneak in the learning. So while they're doing that, and while they're learning how to build, for instance, a runway, we're teaching them, what do all these markings mean? They're on the runway. When they're building, the lighting systems, we teach them about that. So there's a real excitement about learning that goes along with being where they already are in the video game. It's gained so much traction. It's gone international. We've got kids from every single state, all the US territories, plus multiple foreign countries. The last few times around, some of the winners, one of the winning teams ended up on the CBS Nightly News. We've had congressional members reach out to acknowledge the teams. Up in Detroit, one of the teams that was a winner, the board of directors invited the kids, these 10-year-old kids, to come brief the board of directors about what they had done, including the innovations that they had recommended. So it's really a fun and engaging way. We see whole families getting involved. So we've really found that to be an effective way to kind of try and reach kids where they are.
Yeah, that's very impressive, actually. And what a way to get them fully engaged with that. Can you guys hear me any better now?
Yes, much better.
Okay. So I figured out what the technical problem was. Today's technology. Sometimes I have a show that's flawless, and then sometimes I have challenges like this. But you guys, you held it down for me for quite a while I figured things out. Wayne, tell us a little bit about your design challenge program for traffic management flow. Let's see, it's called Traffic Management Flow Application Integration Design Challenge. Did I do that right?
Yes, that is correct. This challenge is the first of its kind. And so the traffic flow management system, if you should put that into Google, you'll see the displays of the big picture of what a day in the national airspace system looks like. And this system allows us to exchange data across 125 sites in the United States, in Europe, Canada, Mexico, and the national airspace boundaries goes west to the border of Japan. So in order for the data and the messages to be seamless from coast to coast, it's reliant on this traffic flow management system. The Application Integration Design Challenge has to do with a reimagining of what this will look like, and particularly how the traffic managers who use the system day to day will interact with it. So as the FAA is figuring out these plans, we've created this challenge and opened it up to university students who have backgrounds in software engineering, user experience, and user design. And we put a problem statement out to them. This is a traffic flow management system. This is what we have today. Based on your knowledge and expertise of software and user expectations, how would you redesign some of these features? And so we've had 5 teams, university teams that were finalists from all over the country. They flew in this week to MITRE, which is a federally funded research development center in Virginia outside of DC. And one by one, they presented their designs, their ideas, and they really astonished us with the way that they integrated many of the problem points and new enhancements that our team, who are the subject matter experts, were thinking towards. And so this has been a really successful event that we're looking to repeat again. So it's an example of industry, academia, and the FAA coming together on a problem, but also some of these solutions and these ideas that the students came up with are probably going to be implemented in the real world, and it's going to have a national positive impact.
And that's a really great thing, because the students are the ones that we, can count on for the future, is what I'm trying to say. I was pushing the wrong button here. Can count on for the future. As you were talking about that and talking about the opportunity there, I think the collaboration between the FAA, the private sector, and the academic institutions is way overdue. And so the more that we can do that, and the more that we can push that, I think the better for everybody. Everybody benefits from it. There's nothing but workforce discussions every week, everywhere now. And we've had them. In fact, I met the two of you because of a workforce workshop type of deal. So I think that it is something that's really key. I wanted to ask you guys, both of you have extensive backgrounds and experience in what you do and in your involvement with the FAA. The FAA is a big organization with a lot of responsibility that covers a lot of territory. What kind of advice do you guys have for someone, and I love to ask this question to my seasoned guests, for kids that are in middle school, kids that are in high school, kids that are in college, and kids that have graduated probably out of an aviation program, who the one in middle school is trying to figure out what they like, and the one in high school is taking that to another level and also thinking about where they may go for training. And I'll throw in there, I say college, but not everybody's cut out for that. So a lot of kids, it could be a 2-year tech school to get a certification as an A&P or something like that, or other things of that nature. And then college, and then post-college. For example, after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, not after, during the pandemic, a lot of students were kind of thrown off their game. They kind of had a game plan, which we all do. We go into college and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to accomplish that, and I'm going to make this happen. We all change our majors, not all, but many of us do. And then in reality, so you're on a professional pilot track, and all of a sudden that's not a reality for that time, when the pandemic hit. Or you get in school and you say, gosh, I don't want to be an engineer, and things like that. As I said at the beginning of this question, you guys, this very long-winded question, you guys have seen a little bit of it all. So what advice at those different levels would you guys have?
So I'll jump in. I think my biggest advice is don't be shy. And here's what I mean about that.
Well, I love that advice.
When those of us who are on this panel were younger, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have a lot of the resources that are available now to be able to make connections. And there are so many opportunities now for young people to be able to reach out, to gain information, and to connect with others in the industry. And I just cannot stress enough to do that. I can tell you, especially in the aviation industry, I don't know if anybody has ever run into any person who is not willing to share all about their background, all about their love for aviation, wants to help you out. It is just such—
You can't shut them up.
No, you can't. Right. It's the opposite, right? And so there's all these opportunities for anything that there's a young person, whether they're in 4th grade or whether they're coming out of college or you're looking to make a career transition. reaching out to people within the industry, I can guarantee you're going to find people who most likely not only will share information with you, but will on the spot volunteer to help mentor you and get you connected with other people and say, hey, did you know about this? Or did you know this person or whatever? So, and I think that's really the most effective way is to not be shy about that. I can tell you, we have times when we'll have young people who will call up the FAA and say, hey, I'd really be interested in coming to visit. Well, the next thing you know, we're setting up a full day. We're getting them to meet the administrator. We're doing, all sorts of presentations, showing them cool stuff, giving them tours. Just that's my biggest advice is just don't be shy. Get out there and make those connections, and you will find the people who have backgrounds that you're interested in or can connect you with others or can help you get where you need to be, who've probably been through the same type of situation where they found themselves thinking, okay, this isn't really what I want to do. I need to make a change. You'll find people who can help you through that. So there's organizations out there like Women in Aviation International and others who I just say, get connected, don't be shy.
No, I love that advice. And on the organizations is Women in Aviation International, there's Women in Corporate Aviation, in AOPA, Aircraft Owner and Pilots Association, NBAA, National Business Aviation Association, GAMA, the General Aviation Manufacturers Association, and we could go on with the alphabets. And those are just the big boys. That's not even including the regionals and things like that, and some of the local groups. So there's a lot there, but I really like that you brought that up and emphasizing don't be shy. I could do a show on don't be shy because a lot of kids, they, for whatever reason, maybe it's just that's the generation, they are intimidated, especially if they get in an aviation environment like at an air show or a major event like Oshkosh or something like that. And they're saturated with the opportunity to get as much information as they want, and they don't talk to anybody or they don't ask questions. And as you said just a second ago, we in this industry, we'll give it to you fire hose style. We will dump information on you. We will help connect you with other people, and we will do that at a pace and a level that you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it is, it's very true, because we're passionate about the industry. We're proud of the industry. And it is something about this industry, because it offers such a wide variety of opportunities and things like that. So you can come in one aspect of it and end up doing something completely different and still get that satisfaction of being part of it. So I really think that's really key to do. I was just thinking of an example of, it took a couple of young people to Oshkosh up there in Wisconsin, big show, in a week they have 600, 700,000 people come through. Many of them aviation enthusiasts, some of them just liking festival type of atmospheres, but most of them are aviation enthusiasts. And you can see any and everything about aviation that you're interested in, and any and every kind of flying machine. I won't even call them an airplane or something, because some of them are just flying machines. I think they're an airplane, or I think they're a helicopter. You'd have to ask the guy that built it, but and learn a lot about that. And I took a couple of young people there, and one of them was very outgoing, and he was, first to ask questions, first to engage in conversation. The other was shy. And I'm bringing it up for two reasons. One, so he was shy until I had a conversation about it. He was with his dad, and so I talked to both of them, and I said, hey, you need to take advantage of being here and talk to people. Just walk up, and if you're curious about something, walk up and start the conversation. Walk up to the plane, ask the pilot about it. Or walk up to the turbine engine jet model that you see and ask about it, and then that it'll roll from there. That was one aspect of it. But the other thing that I find that sometimes happens, and this also happens with kids applying for scholarships, they get overwhelmed. There is so much out there that they don't know where to start, so to speak. So after the one young man I'm talking about had been there for a couple of days, we were sitting down having dinner, he, his dad, and I said, hey, so how's it going? And he says, it's great, but I don't know where to start and where to, he was kind of like, I don't know what to do or where to start. So I said, well, I'll make a suggestion. Why don't you think of it in categories? So think of it on the flying side, if that's what you're interested in about being a pilot, et cetera, or think of it on the technical side, if it's mechanical and engines and avionics. Break it into those type of things. And his dad looked at me like, oh, that's a good idea. And he looked at me like, okay, I'm going to try that. So fast forward a day later, I said, so how did today go? He goes, oh, so much better. Because he had a little bit of guidance of where to focus on it and that type of thing, which brings me to another area. And then Wayne will get your perspective on this too, which brings me to another area. And that is the knowledge or lack thereof that sometimes advisors, counselors, teachers have. They mean well, but they just don't know much about our industry. Our industry is still somewhat of a mystery to a lot of people. And so they don't know about it. People, when you say FAA, the only two things they probably associate is air traffic control and maybe safety, because those are two primary things that stick out, but they don't know all of the other elements of it. So I probably have taken too much time to say all that, but I think you hit a nerve with me in terms of it being something that's really important that these kids need to know. And it's good for their parents to know, hey, when you take your kid to something, to the museum or whatever, if there's an opportunity to talk to somebody in any aspect of this industry, that they need to take advantage of it, and they'll find that it'll be very, very good for their career. So, Wayne?
Yes, certainly. I concur with everything that you said, and also what Chris has said as well. The advice I always give is to follow your curiosity. And curiosity, for me anyway, has never let me down. It doesn't always mean that I have had a linear path. However, with each aspect of aviation that I've been able to touch, whether it's working at an airport, whether it's working within the FAA and air traffic control, or other things that I've done completely not related specifically to aviation, there are moments when this prior knowledge does merge and does become very useful. And so it's a nuance, it's a balancing act, right? We never have that perfect, clear picture as to where our path is going to lead. But another very important thing that you touched on is the importance of mentors and people who have walked the path before us. Certainly, no one can do this alone. No one can get into an airplane and figure out how to fly it alone. No one can jump into some of these very high-level technical discussions and figure out where it starts and where it ends. Mm-hmm. So being able to have conversations with people who have done it, who started out just like any other student, asking those same questions and experiencing those moments of being overwhelmed, all of that is actually normal. And so there's a way through it, and it's very important for students and parents and academics also to know that you don't have to go about it by yourself.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, though. That's very true. That it is normal. so not to scare any of the kids like I probably just did, but no, it's a normal process. As my wife and kids will tell you, I can be intense. It's a normal process for them, and they shouldn't be intimidated by it if they can. As I mentioned that about the scholarships earlier, that a lot of kids started. First of all, I'm going to say this just while we're on this topic. There is a ton of scholarship money out there that's available for every aspect of the industry. And a lot of it sits on the table because a lot of the kids start the process, but they don't finish it. They bog down somewhere. And that's the time when you need to reach out to whomever, to somebody and say, hey, I'm applying for this scholarship, but I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, including the people that are providing the scholarships. They're more than happy to help because they want to give the money away, which sounds interesting, but it's true. They want to help you out. They want to get you going. So I think that's a big piece of it and a very important part. But the doing the reach out and really basically what you just said, and not being intimidated by it, and being comfortable with asking somebody for help is a way to do that. I was just thinking ahead of myself in the sense that there are kids that get repeated scholarships or 2 or 3 scholarships because no one else is applying, and are following through with it and that type of thing. And it's usually pretty simple stuff. I think the one that trips kids up a lot is the essay about why they want to be in aviation and things like that. And, my advice, just tell it like it is. If you're an airport rat like I was, then, that's, you love everything about it and that's what you want to do. And can you help me out? so things like that. You guys, so I'm thinking ahead of myself on a couple of things here, but I wanted to go back a little bit in terms of both of your backgrounds and ask each of you, what was it, where was the, well, you kind of already said it, Wayne, the turning point for you, I think primarily was when you took that first flight. How about you, Chris? What was a turning point for you that said, okay, this is definitely a direction I'm going and I'm staying in?
So interestingly, I grew up, my grandfather worked for TWA, for those of you who were old enough to remember when TWA was around, his entire career.
TWA tells on you.
Okay. See, so he lived in Johnson City, New York, down the street from the Broome County Airport. And so we would go down to the airport quite often because back then, you could go all around the airport. So I did have that exposure early on, but I didn't follow up on that at all. I went through all of my collegiate career. I was focused on international relations, and I had a minor in Spanish. And so I had always thought I was going to be, some sort of diplomat or something like that. So when I got out of college, it turned out my best friend in high school, their entire family worked for the FAA. So when I got out of college and everybody was having a hard time finding jobs, the mom called and said, hey, our office needs secretary. So I applied, and that's how I got into the FAA. 30 years later, I'm still here because I fell in love with it. And it's just, I spent 20 years doing international work, which was absolutely amazing. Got to combine that whole, being a diplomat kind of thing with this wonderful industry. And like I said, one of the things that struck me right off the bat was just the passion and the fellowship that you find within this industry that I don't know that you necessarily find in other industries. So that's what really captured me. And then it's just been such an amazing experience that I've stuck around for 30 years and plan to continue to stick around. And now my passion is really introducing that industry to other younger people.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your international experience. I think a lot of the audience would be interested in that. What kind of things did you do for the FAA internationally?
So it sounds really exciting and exotic, and there are periods when it is, right? So I got to travel all over the world. I happened to focus on work with the Russians in that area of the world. So I literally was sent to Siberia on a couple of occasions, been to a lot of exotic places, got to have some really amazing experiences. I worked the Paris Air Show. So those kind of things were really exciting. But quite honestly, a lot of it was really, we did a lot of negotiating international agreements. So a lot of it was doing staff work to be able to effectively carry out those things. So the FAA does a lot of technical assistance to foreign countries. So there's a lot of that kind of work that goes into that. A lot of opportunities to work very closely with colleagues all over the world, which was really cool because you got to get the experience of working with different cultures and seeing how things, how people work differently, how things work differently all over the world. It was an amazing experience, which is why I stuck with it for 20 years. But yeah, a lot of people don't even realize that there's an international contingent to the work that we do at FAA, and also the International Civil Aviation Organization, otherwise known as ICAO, is the UN body for aviation. So we do a lot of work at that international level too. So it was a very exciting time.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people realize that the FAA has a lot of influence worldwide, internationally? First of all, we have what we could easily call the best air traffic control system in the world. And so a lot of people take pages out of our book with regard to that. But the other part that's really important is the integration of that system with all of the other systems around the planet. So, Wayne, could you speak to that a little bit? Because I would imagine a lot of what you do in your aspect of the FAA has some impact with that.
Yes, precisely. The international operations is something that we are involved with on a daily basis at the command center. So Chris just described what the long-term portions of those negotiations look like. And then when it comes time to the actual phone calls of what are we going to do today for the next 24 hours, those calls and those real-time playbooks, if you will, go into effect at the operations level. So the range of things that we work on is actually quite broad. For example, if we're talking real-world operations, in the event that there are earthquakes or national disasters, both in the U.S. and around, we help to provide the contingency support, working with the Department of Homeland Security and DoD and others to provide assistance. And so working cross borders is very important to do that timely and effective and well. But in order to do that, folks like Chris and others have to create those partnerships and those relationships ahead of time. And that's just one example of many of what that real-time execution looks like.
Yeah, when a tropical system is developing in the Atlantic or something like that, that affects you guys because of what it's going to, it affects you two ways: trips overseas, and then what's going to happen if it reaches here in the States. That plays into that, what you were just talking about?
Yes, absolutely. We work very closely with the National Weather Service. We have meteorologists that are on site, and they're tracking any potential of disturbance off the coast of Africa as it's moving all the way across the Atlantic. And when we start to see projections that it could make landfall, start to strengthen, then that prompts the air traffic organization to take other measures in preparation and execution as needed. So that's just one example of how the entire system works together. Different people in different parts of government with different expertise, but in order for us to create an effective plan that we can address some of these issues, we have to be communicating, and we have to be working together at every stage.
Sure. So tell us a little bit. I don't know if you touched on it at all because I was busy tinkering but earlier in the show, but tell us a little bit about the Tech Center, the FAA Tech Center, and what that is comprised of, what it's for, and what you guys do with it.
Yes, so the FAA Technical Center, the William J. Hughes Technical Center, is located in Atlantic City. It's actually co-located with the airport itself, and it is a FAA facility specifically purposed to do the research and the development for many things aviation related. So the lab environments and the type of testing and research that goes on brings in the specialists and scientists and engineers of many different backgrounds to start to prototype and test different capabilities before we start to bring these into the real world and into interaction with the public. So it allows for us to test the safety, be it mechanical, be it systems, or be it procedural, and also to catch issues, to fix them, correct them, refine them as much as we can before introducing them to the real world. It's a very fascinating compound. Many different types of activities are happening, and also paving the way for what we'll start to see over the next 5 years, especially urban air mobility. That's one area where there's a lot of testing happening now. and also space operations, as we alluded to earlier. The cadence for commercial space operations is going up. Spaceports are being discussed and built in different parts of the country, and we're going to see a lot of evolution. But in order for that to happen safely, it has to be tested very rigorously. It has to be developed. Subject matter experts have to pick apart what's wrong and put it back together again. And that's the level of excellence that we demand of ourselves before introducing this to the public.
Yeah, I would think that would be very interesting to young people in terms of the future and testing things and, you know, coming up with new ideas and things. And it kind of goes along with the design programs you guys were talking about earlier. All of it kind of ties together. Yeah, we only have a few minutes left. So as we kind of wrap up, I wanted to go back and recap on anything that you have coming up or any programs that you wanted to reemphasize that people should be looking for or getting in touch with the FAA about.
So I would love to take this opportunity to highly encourage anybody who's listening to visit FAA.gov/education for a couple reasons. One, there's links to the Airport Design Challenge and that Adopt a School program, our ACE camps, you can find out where they are, all sorts of resources for parents, teachers, and students. So I do highly encourage you to reach out there. The other thing is, it's very critical, is you can also find information there on how to reach us. So I've got folks in each one of our 9 regions. The FAA has 9 regions around the country who are full-time dedicated to doing outreach and coordinating outreach within their regions. So if you are listening and you happen to be a student or a parent or a teacher or a counselor, and you're looking for some engagement from the FAA, please do not hesitate to reach out, and then we can see how we can connect you to get some folks out there to engage with your students.
Yes, and likewise, the being an outreach representative, as Chris had mentioned, is a great opportunity to open the doors to some of these places, getting inside the control towers, getting to a place like the tech center and meeting the scientists and the engineers and cybersecurity specialists who are doing this every day. And so those opportunities are all published on the FAA.gov/education website. And it's something that we really enjoy and really encourage. So over the next several months, I'll continue to do that as well across the region in Virginia as opportunities come up.
Oh, Vince, you're muted. I don't think, Vince, you're muted.
As I was saying, I was going to do this earlier, but I didn't want this to become like a PowerPoint presentation. But I'm going to bring up your PowerPoint minute just to show.
Oh, thank you.
I've got it. Yeah, to show a couple of pages and based on what you're talking about. So if you want, just tell us a little bit about this.
Sure.
Or re-emphasize it, and then I'll also show the contact page.
Sure. So I do appreciate that. So there's, when I refer to the 9 regions for the FAA, where you see the break apart there, those are the regions. And then you can see the dots there are where our regional offices are located. So that's where I have staff. But just because they happen to be located, for instance, in Atlanta, it doesn't mean that they're not covering that entire region. So our person in Atlanta is also actively setting up outreach activities in Florida, for instance, or in the Virgin Islands, which is part of her. So yeah, that just gives you an idea of where our breakup is. But we've got somebody who can cover every single state. So don't hesitate to reach out, and you can find the contact names online.
Yeah, and I think there we go.
Yeah.
So these are some of your primary contacts throughout the country, right?
Those are, and a couple of them are empty, but you can always reach out to me too. So that it's easy. Chris.sharp@faa.gov. I'm happy to communicate with anybody and everybody, get you linked up with our folks. Sometimes I connect people with outside organizations. So and yeah, that's just a little bit of a summary of some of the things that we've already talked about today, about the types of things we can do, the competitions that we have, and really just to sort of reinforce that last piece is that whole concept of it takes a village. You know, it's not just the FAA, it's organizations that are nonprofit, that's industry, it's academia, it's individuals, right? So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And there it is. Together we can make a difference.
yep.
So, well, listen, guys, it's been great to have you. Any final words or thoughts that you'd like to share as we wrap things up?
I always like to leave people with homework. So if I could,
Okay.
um,
Sure, give a homework assignment. Why
I
not?
always do. For those who are listening, I'd say if you're a young person and you have some interest in aviation, I really challenge you to reach out, and whether it's to a local organization or to us at the FAA, or, you know, to just start walking through airports and talking to people. I do encourage that. For those who are already in the industry, I really encourage everybody to take it on as a responsibility to reach back to young people, to share your stories, to encourage others, and really let them know about this wonderful industry that we have.
Absolutely. Wayne, any final words?
Yes, indeed. I will repeat my refrain to follow your curiosity. It is definitely the path that will lead to all kinds of adventures. Aviation is very unique. We help people get from point A to point B all over the world, and to be a part of that is a very special opportunity. So follow your curiosity, ask for help, and we hope to bring you into the fold.
Yeah. Chris, Wayne, thank you very much for taking the time to do this and be available to let the younger folks know about the opportunities within the Federal Aviation Administration and the things that you guys are doing as an outreach to really, you know, present all of the possibilities that exist in our industry right now. And so it's really great. You guys have some really great programs that I'm sure even some of them I wasn't familiar with until actually that Workforce Summit. So,
Yeah.
And some other conversations I've had with the FAA. So it's really great to have you guys, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, All Things Aviation and Aerospace is the video podcast presentation of Private Air Media. It is available to watch on demand via my Private Air Media YouTube channel, LinkedIn Live page, and Facebook Live page. It is also available as an audio-only podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you choose to listen to your podcasts. I'm looking forward to next week as I preview the upcoming EAA AirVenture Oshkosh that you heard me talking about a little bit earlier, that's taking place at the end of July, and will be celebrating its 70th anniversary. And to think, 70 years ago, it all started as a weekend gathering with a small group of pilots who like to build airplanes in their hangars and garages. Now it's become the biggest aviation festival, I like to call it, on the planet, with 600 to 700,000 attendees over a course of a week. If you like aviation out of a fire hose, the term I used a little bit earlier, with the fire hose effect, then you probably want to check this out. I'm looking forward to my conversation with EAA's Director of Communication, Dick Kopinski, and Paul Malloy, the Director of Education. In the meantime, please take care, stay safe flying if you're a pilot like me, and blue skies. See you next Friday. Have a good one.